is, all right, that is enforced and can be enforced. The ginseng season is from September 1st to December 31st. And, you can't collect outside of that season, and you can't collect any ginseng plants that have green berries. The ginseng that you collect must have red berries. You must replant those berries, and you can't take any ginseng that has less than 3 prongs, and those are the leaflets of the plant. And when you harvest ginseng, again, the conservation aspect, make sure you plant those berries back to try to create more ginseng. I wish my folks had done that when I was growing up. Some of those poisonous plants that you need to be familiar with, some of them, aren't native. Some of them are, even exotics, and some of them are house plants. But English ivy is a poisonous plant. Water hemlock is poisonous. Poison hemlock is, of course, poisonous. And they both look like Queen Anne's lace or wild carrot. So you really have to be able to discern the difference between Queen Anne's lace and these guys. Jimson weed is a datura, and it's poisonous. I don't know if you remember, maybe 10, 15 years ago, the kids were eating the Jimson weed seeds and they thought they were getting high, and all they were doing was poisoning themselves. Poison ivy, of course, castor bean. I see so much castor bean growing around, and that's poisonous. Larkspur, so delphiniums are poisonous. They're in the buttercup family. Which you all know, and a lot of the buttercups are poisonous. And then again, the Star of Bethlehem looks like little onions, but it's got that little white streak down the blade of each leaf, and so that makes it Star of Bethlehem. So there are more, and I know you guys know how to identify poison ivy. Leaves of 3, let it be. But especially this time of year, I've taken classes out, and you have kids, and turn it around, and it's in the fall, and there they are with these beautiful red poison ivy leaves. And like, look, these are beautiful, and they are, but can still give you poison ivy. And be sure to get a lot of different references to be able to compare notes and to study wild edibles. Some of my favorites, this is Billy Joe Tatum. That's one of my very favorites because it was Sharon Bracey's favorite. And the recipes in Billy Joe Tatum's Wild Foods Field Guide and Cookbook are very easy. Nowadays, you have to kind of get them online from Amazon because I think it's out of print, but that's still my favorite book. Of course, Sharon's book is one of my favorite books because it's based here in Tennessee. So Eating Wild with Sharon Bracey is a great book. It's always good to have different types of books. The field guides, the Peterson field guides are going to tell you how to identify the plants. But things like, eating the wild edibles, they're going to have recipes in them. They're going to have things that's going to tell you how to prepare the plants. The edible wild plants. This is going to help you with the nutritional value of the different wild edible plants. And so different books have different purposes. And back here, you can see that Magic and Medicine of Plants. That was just a Reader's Digest book, but Patti Smith used it to kind of create a program on how incredibly interesting plants are. So you're really going to have to get a lot of different references. And of course, everybody has or doesn't have, but they're familiar with Stalking the Wild Asparagus by Yul Gibbons, and that's always a good read. And it's one of the old tried and trues. But what I'll do now is go into some of the plants that I often harvest and share with other people. Again, these are going to be the easiest plants. So as far as learning new plants, you're probably not going to learn new plants tonight, but what you may learn are new purposes for plants you already know. And that's the best of two worlds because you already know them and you don't have to worry about identifying them. But I love violet leaves. When you take a violet leaf, you use a violet leaf just like you would use lettuce. It's like a very good, lettuce, like romaine lettuce. It's like a hearty lettuce, and it tastes like lettuce. Now, when people come and start doing wild edibles in the very beginning, they'll go, well, that tastes like a green plant. And I'll go, well, yeah, I'm using it like lettuce. What does lettuce taste like? You know, my friend Wendy says, you know, lettuce doesn't taste like ranch dressing. And, you know, lettuce just tastes like lettuce until you put something on it. So I always tell people to give the wild edibles a fair chance, and think about how, you know, the plants you eat all the time would taste naked, you know, so to speak. But I use violet leaves, you know, like lettuce. So it's usually a foundation for the salad that we prepare. The violet flowers themselves are edible, and you can put them on the salad. A lot of people make violet jelly, so you can make a beautiful, beautiful jelly out of the violet flowers. And then remember that doctrine of signatures. I always tell people that, you know, people once thought, you know, the language of flowers, people once thought that what something looked like was what it was good for or what it represented. And so one of the most romantic things you can possibly give someone to tell them how much you love them is a bouquet of violets, because of this heart-shaped leaves and the beautiful purple and green. So violets are incredibly common, incredibly simple, yet lots and lots of uses. And of course, dandelion is another, you know, and a lot of these things are going to be weeds that I'm telling you about. But, you know, the good thing about things that are weeds that are wild edibles is you don't have to worry about eating too many of them. You dig them up, and you can use as much as you like. This little mouse over here eating these red berries has nothing to do with the dandelions. It was part of the thing I found online. So just forget about the little mouse over there. But dandelions, when they're really, really young, you can use, you know, their young leaves as a green, you know, or just eat it in a salad. You can you know, fry the dandelion heads and eat them like fritters. People make dandelion syrup, people make dandelion wine, people make dandelion tea. So there's so many different things you can use for dandelion. The roots can be roasted. When you roast the roots of dandelion in the oven, it smells just like you're roasting coffee beans. It really does smell like something, and that's what you would use it for. You would roast the roots in the oven. You would, after you get it nice and roasted, you crush the roots, and then you would brew it in your coffee maker just like you do coffee. Now, again, I tell people to be fair to things like coffee substitutes, because, you know, if you just drink coffee, it's going to be bitter and strong. So I tell them, if you're going to eat or drink something like the dandelion root for coffee substitute, you have to eat it like you, or drink it like you would your regular cup of coffee. So, you know, when we serve dandelion root coffee, you know, we provide sugar and cream to put in it so that you can doctor it up a little bit, just like you do every morning with your own coffee. But dandelion's fun, and it's fun. This is a fun plant to share with kids, because, you know, we always like to talk about where the name dandelion comes from. And the name dandelion comes from Dante Leon, or tooth of the lion. And then that little barb right there on the leaf of the dandelion looks like a tooth of a lion. And Dante Leon is where the dandelion gets its name. And then lamb's quarters. So people will sometimes say, what is your favorite wild edible? And I'll say, lamb's quarters, because you can use lamb's quarters just like spinach. And it, you know, it can get large like this, and you can still cook it like spinach. But, you know, it's called lamb's quarters because it has little fuzz on the leaves that give it this little kind of woolly appearance. And so this often grows as a weed, oftentimes in ag lands, and it seems to really like barns. So it can be, you know, just as much as you want, you can harvest it out of a barn, usually on a farm somewhere. It's not native, it's an exotic plant, so you can harvest as much of it as you like. But to me, this is one of those plants that tastes even better than the regular plant that we eat. The lamb's quarters taste better than spinach to me. But you cook it exactly the same way. You can parboil it, you can steam it, you add a little bit of butter, a little bit of salt, and you're ready to go. And it's very, very nutritious. It has lots of calcium in it. So it's one of the best wild edibles you can have that's not only easy, you can collect as much of it as you want, and it tastes really good, and it's really good for you. So it's a good one to have. Then poke salad, of course. Anybody that grew up in the Old South is familiar with poke salad. And, we never ate it raw growing up. We always ate it being cooked like a green early in the season. I see these little leaves over here, you can just pick them and boil them or steam them and eat them just like a green. Once they start getting larger, you might want to parboil them, which means that you boil them, you pour that water off. It's after 6 o'clock. People are still calling me. That's my state phone. Sorry. But you want to boil them, pour that water off, and put fresh water in there and boil it again. And then that way you're getting rid of it. And you see that red coloring right there could be poison that would make you ill. And it's not going to kill you, but it's not going to be good. Pokeberries are not edible. Again, even though you see mockingbirds eating the pokeberries, they love pokeberries, but they're poisonous to people. And again, Queen Anne's lace or wild carrot. Again, this looks very much like poison hemlock. What you're after is a single stalked plant that has that big umbel at the top, and it's the roots that you would use as a carrot substitute. And you're going to use it just like a carrot, and it tastes very much like a carrot. That is one of the things that you learn with wild edibles is whatever part of the plant that you use, you pretty much prepare it like you would use that part of other plants that we use. Just like with the carrot, you use the roots. With the Queen Anne's lace or wild carrot, you would use the roots, and you would eat them raw. You could cook them, but most of the time we eat them raw in salads. Some people will eat parts of this flower head. I don't, but some people do. I mostly just focus on the root of Queen Anne's lace and use it just like a wild carrot. And then red bud. Now, again, this is one of those that you need to know a little bit about the plant as far as what family it's in. So red buds are a legume. And, these blossoms of the red bud is very edible and beautiful in a salad. But remember that it's related to peanuts. And so if you have a peanut allergy, you're also going to be allergic to red buds. So you have to be very careful with that. So, that's why you don't want that phone call the next day asking if we had peanuts, because you think, oh my goodness. But I always ask, if you're sharing this information with anybody, I always ask the group, do you have any allergies? What allergies do you have? And we will be talking about plants and their families so that you'll know what to avoid. And so with red buds, you would definitely want to avoid the blossoms if you are allergic to peanuts. And then plantain. Plantain, we get into a little bit of the medicinals here. So plantain, everybody's familiar with plantain growing in the yard. You've got narrow leaf plantain, you've got broadleaf plantain, and it's a medicinal in that as a natural poultice. And what that means is if you were walking across the yard and you got stung by a bee, you could collect these leaves of the plantain and chew them up and then put that on the bee sting, and that's going to draw out the venom the sting, and it's just going to make it feel better. Now, I'm not sure how much of that is the placebo effect, but it does really work with kids. If you have a kid, on a hike and they get stung by a sweat bee or something, you find some plant and they're just going to be so in awe of you sitting there chewing up a plant out of the yard and then putting it on their hand. They're going to forget about that bee sting. But it has been used as a medicinal for many, 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 many years. And it is to draw out the poison, to draw out the sting, and to make things feel better. Serviceberry, serviceberry is one of the beautiful early spring trees. This is a native tree that often grows on hillsides, and the serviceberry has a berry to it, much like a raisin, but very hard to harvest, very hard to catch it just at the right time. But I have, found them and eaten them, and they taste like a teeny tiny little prune. But there are a lot of things out there that are berries that are good to eat. You just have to know when exactly to harvest them. And daylilies. So I'm not sure if daylilies are native or not native. You guys can tell me that. When I was growing up, daylilies grew wild on our creek banks. And I've always had daylilies in my yard, and people will sometimes, when they come to wild edible classes, they want to know survival plants. What are some plants that I can have if things get really, really bad, and I need some plants to help me survive? And I always say daylily. Daylilies are easy to plant, they're easy to grow, and so much of them are edible. And again, it's the parts of the plants, you prepare them just like you would the parts of the plant that you're substituting. For example, daylily roots are just like potatoes. I often make a root soup for our wild edible classes, and I just basically get these roots. Whenever you're using roots, you have to dig up the plant, but so much of the time you need to thin out daylily beds anyway. But you get this plant, you scrub the skin off of the roots, you boil the roots just like potatoes, and you can make a cream of daylily root soup. And it's great. It's delicious. You can make fritters out of the daylily flour. You can take and dip it in egg and milk and put it in flour and fry it, and you have a fritter. People don't believe it, but these little blossoms come in the buds of the daylily. When you take them and fry them in butter and add a little salt, they taste just like asparagus. So there's so much of the daylily plant that is edible, from the flower to the buds to the roots, that they are a great edible plant to have around. Maybe not native, but they're a good one to have. The other one that folks are kind of shocked to know that they are edible is greenbrier, smilax. Something that Sandy Bivens used to call blasphemy vine because of these thorns on the vines. She probably still calls them that. But if you take greenbrier or smilax when it is young, and you take the shoots, you take the early young growth, spring growth, but you can still find it now, and just only go back to where it's still tender, just where you can still pull it off, where it's tender. And again, you fry that in butter, saute it in butter. You don't really need to fry it, and add a little salt to it. And again, greenbrier will taste exactly like asparagus. People are amazed on that one. So it's a good one to have. And again, these things are probably just as nutritious as asparagus. It's just going to be a green that you're eating. Then cattails, they're another good one. And again, it's a native plant. It's abundant. Folks have, before these turn into these brown fruit heads. These are the little young fruits, and they're like corn on the cob. You can take and you can boil them, but they might have to be much younger than this in order to eat them like corn on the cob. And then if you let it go to where it's creating the pollen can be collected and used like flour, but it's going to take a whole lot of that to make any flour. What I have eaten on the cattail is actually the young little cattails they're in a wetland that's just beginning to poke up. It's just a new little cattail, and like a corm, and it tastes like cucumber. So again, you're gonna use it like in a salad. You're gonna eat it raw. You're gonna put it in there with your violet leaves and your violets or your red bud flowers, and then you're gonna add some wild onions and a little bit of cattail, new growth, and you've got yourself a good salad. And then a little bit more on the medicinals. Most of our, or a quarter of our drugs are derived from plants, and but there are still a lot of good native wild medicinals out there. And one of those is willow. The bark of black willow, has salicylic acid in it, and salicylic acid is the same active ingredient that's in aspirin. So you could take and dig some of this bark off, boil it in water. You can do the twigs the same way, and you're basically going to make yourself a liquid aspirin. Now, is it as effective as an aspirin that's been concentrated and created in a lab? No, but you can make a strong tea, and it is going to help you. It's going to help you do the exact same things that aspirin does. It's the same active ingredient, so it's going to help you with inflammation. It's going to help you with fever. It's going to help you, feel better. So it's something good to know. And then Mayapple. Mayapple is another one of those that you have to catch right at the right time of year in order to be able to eat that fruit. And the only thing edible about Mayapple is the fruit that's going to replace this blossom right here. And in order for them to create this blossom and to create that fruit, they have to have at least 2 of these big umbrella-like leaves. They're not mature enough to make their fruit, which is the single leaf Mayapple. So you have to have 2 leaves to be mature enough, and then the blossom. Then you've got to be there at the right time. But this is one of those plants that, there's a fine line between a medicine and a poison. So every part of the Mayapple to us is poison except for that fruit. But it's shown promise in the use of to help cure, used as a chemotherapy drug in the treatment of lung and testicular cancer. But there's always a fine line between a medicinal and a poison, a medicine and a poison, and you've got to know exactly what that is. But the black willow, it's easy. It's just you boil the bark and it's going to be like aspirin. But the Mayapple plant could have serious poisons in it that can be used as a medicine, but probably not a good collectible wild edible. But you can eat the little apple that's formed right here if you catch it right at the exact right time of year. And then jewelweed. Again, I've mentioned Wendy Hunter, who is my partner in these wild edible classes, especially the ones that Becoming an Outdoor Woman. And she makes salves out of the jewelweed. She actually collects the plants, grinds them up, adds them to beeswax and olive oil and this sort of, but it's an incredibly good aloe-like salve. And jewelweed's one that if you get down on a creek bank, you get in a wet area, and you get into stinging nettle. Oh my goodness, stinging nettle is the worst thing. I know you guys have experienced that, but it's jewelweed's one of the best things. Just if you see it growing, and a lot of times stinging nettle will grow in the vicinity of jewelweed, and you can just grab some of that plant, again, crush it up and put it where it's stinging. and it's going to help make that sting go away, just like aloe does for burns. So it's very much like aloe. And then with the jewelweed, it gets the name because if you put that leaf down in water, it's going to glimmer like a jewel. But if you are just interested, you're never going to get enough nutrition out of this. But if you let these fruits mature and ripen, inside of here is a little brown seed that if you were to eat it, tastes like a little walnut. It's just going to be a teeny tiny little thing. It's just for curiosity. The main thing about jewelweeds is that they're great hummingbird plants. They're great touch-me-nots. It's fun for kids to grab these little seed pods and let them explode like this right here. And then it's good for both poison ivy and stinging nettle. It's just a good salve. And then elderberry. An elderberry is being kind of advertised as a great immunity booster right now. And growing up, we would collect the elderberries, and my mom would make jelly. My dad would make wine out of the elderberries. But Wendy makes a tincture, and the tincture, you take all these elderberries and you put them in pure grain alcohol and leave them for a long time. And the pure grain alcohol gets all the good chemicals out of the elderberry, and it makes a good tincture as an immunity booster. And so she does that. And people will also take this flower head, and again, you can put it in milk and egg and douse it in flour and fry it and end up with an elderberry fritter as well. But elderberry is supposed to be one of the best medicinals as far as preventive medicine. And then Jerusalem artichoke. Jerusalem artichoke is blooming right now. And you have to know when to collect things. So right now, as the plant is blooming, it's exerting a lot of its energy. So you wouldn't want to collect the roots of the Jerusalem artichoke right now, because all of its energy is being put into the flower. You want to wait for all of that energy to recede back into the root before you start eating the root of the Jerusalem artichoke. And you would eat it very much like potatoes or water chestnut. The way I have prepared it before is you collect the roots and you clean them really well, and then you wrap them in aluminum foil and you bake them, and then add a little butter and salt and eat them just like a potato. But it's not starchy like a potato. It has inulin in it versus starch, and it's not as sweet, and it's not as bad for you if you have diabetes. So that's one of the good things about Jerusalem artichokes. And this is, again, is a plant that you can plant because you don't see just huge masses of Jerusalem artichoke in the wild to be able to collect from. But I did see one blooming on my place just today. And then spice bush. This is one of my favorite plants in that it's considered a spring tonic. And this is a plant that you would collect the twigs in the spring, and you would boil those twigs and you would make a tea out of it. And it is said to thin the blood. Now, I'm not quite sure what that means, but it helps to probably just the drinking of the tea, the boiled water made people back in the day before freezers and refrigerators and having to eat things like potatoes and bread and salted meat for the winter probably just tasted good and made them feel like their blood was being thinned and helped them to feel better. But one of the best things about spice bush, I always like to have spice bush around, and I have it growing very abundantly wild where I live now. But I used to would plant it in my yard because I want to see the spice bush swallowtail. So with spice bush, you can not only have the twigs that you use as a spring tonic tea in the springtime, but you get the spice bush swallowtail coming and laying eggs on it, and so you get to see the caterpillars, those very crazy looking clown-like caterpillars of the spice bush. But very cool. And then and just changing all different ways. Bob got really good pictures of these. And then there's the chrysalis. But one thing I also want to show you right now, going back, these green berries turn bright red. And so right now would be the time you'll see the spice bush and the red berries. Now would be the time that you would collect those red berries and just put them, in a drying tray and let them dry. And those red berries harden, and then you use them just like you would use, nutmeg, or clove. It's going to be a spice, but you could literally grate those and use it as a spice, very, very similar to nutmeg. And that's one of the reasons it gets the name spice bush. Spice bush is also a good shrub to know that, when you're on the trail and you're hiking and your mouth gets dry, you can chew on the twigs and it will help wet your whistle. It's not going to rehydrate you, but it's just going to make your mouth less dry. And sassafras. Sassafras is one of my favorite native plants. It's so cool to talk with folks about it and share it with kids and adults alike. We often have the sassafras tea. And there are studies out there that say that the roots of sassafras tea, if you drank too much of it, could be a carcinogen. But the idea on that is don't drink too much of it. So, but just to taste it. Again, with all of these things, you're not going to make it a staple of your diet. But it's just fun to try. And if you had to, you could. As you guys know, sassafras is one of the few trees that has 3 different leaf shapes on it: the sock and the glove and the mitten. Like mulberry has the 3 different leaves. And then what I will tell folks, that there's more than one use for sassafras. People use the roots to make the tea. But people also dry, we use it all the time. People dry sassafras leaves, and sassafras leaves make filet. So when you're having filet gumbo, what you're having, the thickener in filet gumbo, are the dried leaves of the sassafras tree. And whenever I used to do more hikes with kids than I do now, but when I did, if we come across the sassafras tree and I would have a horrible kid, I'd ask if they would want to do an experiment with us, and they'd always say yes or she, and I'd get them to chew one of the sassafras leaves. And once they do that, it is a thickener, and it will thicken the saliva in your mouth just like it will thicken a pot of gumbo. So I'd always get even with the bad kid in class by getting them to chew up the sassafras leaf. But then wild ginger, with wild edibles, what you'll discover, it's a lot easier to get the spices, to things than it is to get the whole meal type thing. But I love wild ginger. It looks kind of like the violet leaf, but it's a little bit more roundish, a lot more fuzzy. You got this nice maroon flower here that's pollinated by ants. But the root down here, that is very much like ginger. And it doesn't take much at all. You take this root and you boil it, and it makes a very good ginger tea. And so you just boil it. You don't even have to add much to it, because if you like ginger, which I do, you're going to love ginger tea made out of wild ginger. Again, whenever you're using the roots of something, you're using the whole thing. It's a commitment on the plant after that. But so I'll get a little bit of ginger root from here and a little bit of ginger root from there, never all of it from one place. But I've got a lot of it on my farm, and so I have enough to keep me supplied for quite a while. And then persimmon, we were just talking about persimmons, and there are persimmons that have fallen to the ground, and they are ripe enough to eat. You have to be careful, because if you eat a green persimmon, you're going to end up with what we used to say, your mouth turned inside out. But incredibly dry mouth. It's just going to take all of the moisture out of your mouth. And so you have to have very ripe persimmons, but not rotten persimmons, because I ate one the other day, tasted like wine. So it had already started fermenting. The problem right now is when you're collecting persimmons is to not get stung by a yellow jacket, because they're out there having a party on these persimmons right now. So you have to be careful not to grab a yellow jacket. But there's so many things you can do with persimmon. The name persimmon, means persistent fruit. So Native Americans would dry this, get it dehydrated, and that would just be a burst of sugar in the wintertime. And then Dios means God, Pyrus means fruit. So the genus for persimmons means fruit of the gods. And so it has a long history of people using the persimmon. I have a dehydrator. I think I'm going to try to dehydrate some persimmons this year. One year I tried to make persimmon leather, and I don't know what I did wrong, but I ended up with mold leather. So you have to be careful with that. But I think a dehydrator is going to help. But you can make persimmon, jelly. You can make persimmon puddings. You can make persimmon icing for cakes and things. So you can do tons of things with persimmons. And if you're into folklore, you can even predict the winter. I have not looked at a persimmon seed yet this year, but the theory is that the embryo inside of a persimmon seed will predict what type of winter we're going to have. If it looks like a spoon, then we are going to have spoons or shovels full of snow. If it looks like a fork, then we are going to have a mild winter. And if it looks like a knife, then we are going to have slicing cold. So it's kind of a vague science, but an interesting one. And then someone held up pawpaws. I saw the largest pawpaw I have ever seen in my life floating down the creek the other day. So, I mean, it was, this is it. It was large, and I've already eaten this pawpaw. So I've already had a pawpaw this year, but now's the time. Now's the time to get out there and fight the possums and raccoons for the pawpaws. The Tennessee banana tree, the pawpaw has these beautiful maroon flowers pollinated by flies. And, oftentimes things that are maroon in color are pollinated by ants or flies. And then if you're lucky, you can find great fruits. And I do think it's going to be a great pawpaw year. We just have to get out there and get them. And I think it's all this rain that we've been having. Wetlands, wooded wetlands are a good place to look for pawpaws, but also alongside creeks. And of course, the pawpaw is the host to our state butterfly, the zebra swallowtail. So just a really cool plant. You can make custard. You can take the pawpaw pulp and flavor, ice cream. So you can make pawpaw flavored ice cream. So it's a great fruit to enjoy. Oaks, you can take the meat of acorns and dry them. One of the things you have to do is you have to Native Americans would put them in a stream, take the husk off, put the meat of the acorn in a stream and let the water flow over the acorns, because oaks have a ton of tannin in them, and tannins are very, very bitter. So you would, what you would do instead of putting it in a creek, you would take that meat of the acorns and you would soak them. The water will turn brown. You pour that water off, you put it in there, the water is going to turn brown. You pour that water off and you just keep on until the water doesn't turn brown anymore. And that means that the tannins have been leached out of the acorn. And it's at that point in time that you can, basically meal the acorn meat, turn it into flour, crush it, turn it into flour, turn it into bread. So if you Google acorn bread, acorn flour. They've got a lot of recipes online for that. So a fun one to try as well. Now, one of my favorite plants, in the nut world is we have lots of black walnuts in Tennessee, and we have some white walnuts in Tennessee. So the butternut is the white walnut. And, people, collect the black walnuts, and there's lots of them, and you can wait until the hull turns black, get that black hull off, crush them, and get that meat out, and use the black walnuts, in brownies or banana nut bread, whatever you want to use it for. You can do the same thing if you have enough of the white walnut or the butternut. Now, butternuts are actually a threatened species in the state. So you wouldn't want to collect too many of these. What I would recommend if you want to experience white walnuts or butternuts is just get a few, let them turn black, get that hull off, get to the meat by, with a hammer or a rock or whatever you got to use. But butternuts, when you taste them, they are worth going to the trouble to taste, because butternuts, they're called butternuts because they have such a sweet meat to their nut. And to me, it tastes like you've combined a walnut and a banana. It tastes like banana nut bread before you ever get started. And we always had butternuts on the creek when I was growing up, and they went away. We had walnut diseases come through, blights, and they went away. But I'm starting to find these walnuts again in the similar place to where they used to be. I don't know exactly why, but I've got one really nice butternut on my property right now. I've got some that don't look great, but then I've got one that's really nice, and I've been collecting the nuts and sharing them with Grow Wild, and they've been propagating them, and they've had a lot of success propagating the white walnuts or the butternuts. So it's a really cool tree. The leaves look very much like black walnuts. It's these nuts. You can see with the black walnut has a round nut. With the butternuts, they have this elliptical shaped nut. It's longer. It's longer than it is wide. So that's the surefire way to identify them. They most of them look like this right now. Some of them look like this, but most of them are just falling off the trees. This picture was taken this year. They're just falling off the trees, and they have the fuzzy hull on them still. But hoping we can keep working, keep conserving to bring the butternuts back, because they're a great tree, wonderful tree to have around. And then tree ears. So these, a few things about mushrooms or fungus. Tree ears grow on the bark of trees. You sometimes, if you like Chinese food and you like hot and sour soup, see the little kind of gelatinous thing inside of your hot and sour soup. That's tree ears. Not necessarily this species, but you can make soup out of tree ears. Again, you have to be careful because some people react to tree ears. So you'd have to sample it very, very, slightly at first. My favorite thing about tree ears is the joke. You know why some trees have ears? So they can hear other trees bark. That goes all the way back to my water park days. we would use that on the kids. But other mushrooms, just a few things about mushrooms. The easiest of mushrooms, I'll show you these three. Of course, the tree ears are a type of mushroom. Oyster mushrooms look very much like oysters, but they've got gills. They taste somewhat like oysters. You can take and saute them in butter and have them with pasta, and that's a really nice meal. It's relatively easy to identify. With mushrooms that have these nice deep gills, some people like to soak them in salt water just to make sure there's nobody living in there. before you eat them. But typically that comes out when you cook them, saute them anyway. This middle mushroom is a morel. This is my friend I was telling Bart earlier about, Anna Della Pinta, who does the mushroom classes on how to grow mushrooms in your logs and things of that sort. But she also hunts mushrooms like these morels. Again, they're easy to identify, and again, one that you would saute in butter and have with pasta. And then her favorite, not my favorite, but her favorite is chicken of the woods. And chicken of the woods are this bright yellow mushroom that grows on logs in the woods. Again, easy to identify. But you can't eat too much of the chicken of the woods. And you cannot eat chicken of the woods and have alcohol with your meal, because if you do, you will get sick. It's not a good idea to combine alcohol and mushrooms, because there's some chemical reaction. Some mushrooms, like inky caps, prevent your body from being able to digest alcohol. So that's not good. And then these guys, chicken of the woods, if you mix alcohol with those, you just end up throwing up. And so if you have mushrooms, it's not a good idea to have a drink with them during your meal. This is what chicken of the woods, sometimes it's that yellow color, and then sometimes it's just this beautiful orange and yellow. And another morel here. All right, so that goes through a quick litany of wild edibles. I've gone for exactly an hour. And this is Methuselah. I don't know if all of you have seen this tree. This tree is at Arnold Air Force Base in Sinking Pond. And it's just an incredible, this is a really unique wetland that occurs there on the Air Force Base. And I don't even know if we could get back to that point now. This was before 9/11. Now they've closed all of that off, but it's a beautiful, beautiful tree. But I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Well, we have quite a few in the chat. So I'll start with the first one. Do
Okay.
you have a good resource recommendation for what the most nutrient-dense wild edibles are? So, for example, I hear you say that something is edible, but I wouldn't eat it unless I knew it was nutrient-dense.
Right. So, yeah, let's go back to our references. So this guy, let me put my glasses on. This guy right here, his name is John Callis. And this book right here, Edible Wild Plants, that's what the focus is on the nutritional value of the plants. And he's the one that says that the lamb's quarters are so highly nutritious, even more so than spinach. You know, Yul Gibbons talked about that quite a bit in Stalking the Wild Asparagus, but now we know a lot more than, you know, when this book was written. Eating on the Wild side is the same way. It focuses mostly on nutrition. It also focuses on buying good, nutritious food. You know, they talk about things like, you know, always buy the dark green lettuce. You know, that's why the violet leaves are so good for you, because it would be considered like one of the dark green lettuces, like romaine, versus, you know, iceberg lettuce, which is mostly water, which isn't bad, but still it's not the most nutrition that you can get. Eating red foods, you know, because that's going to increase your antioxidants. So these two references, Eating on the Wild Side, I wish I could see that author, and this Edible Wild Plants are two good references for that.
Robert Davis has asked, what about kudzu flowers?
I've never tried kudzu flowers. You know, they're going to be a legume, right? So
someone named Kat has replied that kudzu flowers are good in jams and jellies. Maybe that'd be one way of getting rid of it before it seeds. Mhm.
All right, so she said kudzu flowers are good. Oh, okay. All right. Something I've never tried kudzu flowers. And then, yeah, I'm seeing some of these things, but I would think that them being related to the red bud, that's possible, but I never go with those relationships, because, you got that Queen Anne's lace and Jimson wheat, or not Jimson wheat, but hemlock going on. So, but I will definitely try that, Kat.
Harlan
You're not
asks,
Kat Dearson, are you? No, no. Okay. What else?
Harlan has stated the carcinogen in sassafras is saffrol.
There you go. So you definitely wouldn't want to, drink too much of that. It's just so hard because it's such a crowd pleaser. Everybody loves sassafras tea. And we don't ever let anybody have very much of it, but it's almost like getting into heritage and history because people used to drink a lot of sassafras. But you would definitely need to be careful. Now the ginger root, is good and it doesn't have that in it. So you could substitute the ginger root for the sassafras. But thanks, yeah, saffron, very good.
Robert Davis asks, how do you get the seeds out of a persimmon?
You spit them out. You put them in your you put them in
That's
your
what
mouth.
I do.
Sorry, Robert. No, a lot of these things, I tell you what else is in season right now, and that's muscadine grapes. And oh my gosh, the other night, I can't eat more than 2 muscadines because it makes my lips start itching. And so I had to squeeze out the pulp of the muscadines and then eat the inside and then spit out the seeds. And I'm planting more muscadine on my farm to try to have more grapes. But so what you're going to have to do with a persimmon is you're just going to have to mash it and open it up and get those seeds out. Same way with a pawpaw. You're just going to have to, if you don't want the peel, you're going to have to slightly, peel that little thin peeling off of it and then open it up and then just get the seeds out. You could use a strainer, you can use cheesecloth, but pretty much it's a matter of picking these things out. I don't do wild edibles on any large scale. So typically I do enough for a group of 20 or 25 to be able to sample these wild edibles, but I don't make a huge amount of things. Now, Wendy, on the other hand, made enough of the violet jelly to give out as wedding gifts for her daughter's wedding. That was what everybody got at her daughter's wedding, was, again, because it's a symbol of love, violet jelly. And she kept saying, you don't know how many flowers this is. And people are going, oh, wow, you're giving me a jar of jelly? And there she said, it was so much work. So, but anyway, yep, basically press and get that seed out of there and take it from there. Mash it.
And we have another question. Can you eat?
Bettina, you're breaking up and we're losing you.
Passiflora fruits. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Karen, if I'm breaking up.
No,
do you eat the passion fruit that grows wild here?
Yes, you can. And so again, growing up, you wait until it gets turns from that green to a yellow, and it seems like the outside starts getting thin, and it smells good. It smells like you'd want to eat it. And again, this is one of those things. So some of these things I've been eating for so long, I can't think of any other way to get rid of the seed except to spit it out, because that's what I've been doing all my life. But with passion, you can call it wild apricot, maypop, you just basically break open that fruit, and you get the inside pulp, and there's not much to it. So you're not going to chew, you're going to suck, and so for us growing up, that was like candy. I mean, it's a passiflora is one of the flavors that they put in Hawaiian punch. And when you taste the maypop, or the wild apricot, it's going to give you a hint of Hawaiian punch, and that's the passiflora. So you can't eat that. I wouldn't eat the seeds, and I wouldn't eat the skin, but you can definitely suck on the pulp. Or you can make a drink out of it. I mean, you could use that as a flavoring.
Julie Gately asks, is it safe to eat black walnuts with the 1000 cankers blight? If that name is right.
Yes, that name is right. You know what? The 1000 cankers doesn't affect people, as far as I know. And if you can get nuts like the pictures I've shown, that's a healthy tree that's produced those good nuts and those good fruits. They just get real gnarly, and they can't produce the fruits. And so yes, now you're going to get like a percentage of them that's going to be edible, but I've never not eaten black walnuts because of the 1000 canker. Death by 1000 cankers. It's horrible.
Lots of comments. Thanks, Pandy. That was so interesting. Great presentation. Congrats on retirement.
Yay.
What about Tree of Heaven?
Horrible.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. Nothing is edible on Tree of Heaven that I know. The only thing that's even remotely edible about it is, the leaves smell like burnt popcorn. But there's, to my knowledge, there's nothing edible on Tree of Heaven. I wish there was. I think of ways to consume a lot of our invasive plants. One is wild mustard. Some places have or wild garlic. Sorry, wild garlic. Some people have like these wild garlic mustard festivals. You guys know what I'm talking about, the garlic mustard that grows wild and takes over areas. And it does have a garlicky taste to it. And I've made a pesto out of it. And, you take as many wild garlic mustard leaves as you possibly can, put them in a blender, add olive oil, add Parmesan cheese, and add walnuts. And you've got, anything's going to taste good with that stuff in it. So I've made a really good pesto out of garlic mustard, and it's an exotic invasive plant. So anytime I can consume those guys, it's a good thing. I'm trying to think of, I just read a book on basketry. I'm trying to think of little baskets that you can make with Sericea lespedeza. So we can start weaving Sericea lespedeza into something. But anyway, but this has been great fun.
There's a message from Kat. She says, Kat Champlin. I work with Stuart Carroll at Virgin Falls.
Oh, okay. Good deal. Good deal. Thanks for joining us.
We have another great presentation. Thank you. What about the passion flower leaves?
The leaves?
Mm-hmm.
No, I leave those for the Gulf fritillaries. So that's it. Whenever you can combine, the edible plants with the plants that are good for butterflies, that's just a bonus. But yeah, not the leaves. I wouldn't eat those, but they're wonderful for the Gulf fritillaries. That's their host plant, and so you're going to be able to get those fruits and have Gulf fritillary butterflies at the same time. Now, I have made grape leaf Use grape leaves in like a roll up thing, stuffed grape leaves. The thing about grape leaves is that you have to basically break down the plant fibers before you use them. So you steam them and then you freeze them and then you heat them back up, and then you can stuff them with whatever you want to stuff them. Usually some really good cheese and herbs, but you can use wild grape leaves just like you can use you can eat those, but you have to break down the fibers in it first. But there's a lot of recipes for that, but they're good. I mean, they're good.
Mother, thank you for a very educational presentation. Thanks.
On the dandelion, it takes a lot of flowers to make the syrup, and my relatives in Denmark do that. And because I got practically a field of dandelion, and the kids I got the cutest picture of the child having all the flowers in the basket. And then the grandmother was making the syrup, and she actually sent me the recipe of it. But
Oh,
no
wow.
thanks. I'm not going to collect dandelion. But on the leaves, naturally, right after the war and during World War II, it was we were using dandelion leaves for letters, and the chenopodium, you showed it as something as lamb's ear, but the head of it was of the chenopodium, and you can use a lot of that plant to make a salad of.
Excellent. I would love to have that picture and that recipe. If you want to send it to either my email or Karen's email, and she can pass it on to me, I'd love it. I'd love to share both of those things with folks. I'd add it to my presentation here.
Karen, am I still breaking up?
No, you're okay now.
Okay, I wanted to make a point about wild ginger root. There is a carcinogen. It's actually a kidney toxin and a carcinogen in members of that family. It's called aristolochic acid because it's the aristolochiaceae, and it actually can cause, I was just looking to see what concentrations are found in that plant in our hemisphere, because a lot of times it's like South American species that they use, but it not only causes your kidneys to fail, but then you get cancer in your failed kidney. So it's a really bad thing. So that might be something to investigate before you drink wild ginger tea.
Yeah, I always wonder, how much you can get away with, because don't drink it a lot. Usually when we're sampling teas, what we'll use are the little cups that you folks have in the bathroom to take medicine with. Those very little tiny little cups. But still, it's good to know that information. So,
yeah, I made one of my friends turn pale when I told him that story, because he makes a liqueur out of it. And I said, you need to figure that out. And I actually found, I have to research it a little more, but I found some articles about what the content is, trying to figure out if it was at a harmful point. But that is a caveat, just the same way as sassafras.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Stephen has a question. Is tree of heaven bark chewable?
I don't know. There are barks that are like, sweet gum. You can get the sap out of the sweet gum tree and chew it. I'm not sure about tree of heaven. I've never tried that. I just consider it a stinky tree, so I've never tried that. But we can always look that up.
Robert Davis asks, what about sumac tea? And
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
it is a good one. I've had that one.
Yep, yeah. Sumac tea is a real easy one. No, it is one that you have to again remember what's giving us that flavor. And sumacs of the red berry. And people always say, "What about poison sumac?" Well, only the sumacs with the red berries can be used to make tea. And it's one you would never boil. It's a tea to where you would get cheesecloth and just put the sumac, fruit head in that cheesecloth. Just run cold water over it and just gently mash the sumac berries, and then a pink tea is going to be created, and it's going to taste, tart. It's going to taste kind of like a green apple, and everybody likes a little tart flavor. But the reason it tastes like a green apple is because it also has malic acid in it. And so, green apples have malic acid, sumac has malic acid. And so if you drink too much sumac tea, you're going to have the same effect as if you ate too many green apples. And we all know what that causes. So again, you kind of have to, all things in moderation, especially with wild edibles for sure. But yeah. So, but that's a fun one to do with kids because kids really like it. Kids like sour things for whatever reason. They like sumac tea, and then they like sorrel. So the little shamrock like leaves of sorrel. If you just take that and chew it, it tastes like a sweet tart. It's going to be tart. When I was growing up and we had the little yellow sorrel in our yard, we would eat the little seed pods that look like a little pickle, and we would call them sour pickles. Yeah, so that kids love sour things.
Well, Bart says, great talk, Pandy. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you. I enjoyed being here. Appreciate it.
Does anyone else have questions? Please speak up.
Just one other thing. Did you realize you've got a Turk's cap lily? You've got 2 daylily pictures and one of them is a Turk's cap lily.
Yeah, I think that Turk's cap is just a better picture.
You got caught.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, that is a Turk's cap lily. It's just, again,
Oh, excuse me. I had a question. I noticed I had to join late and I noticed it said it was recording. Will the recording be on the website or where?
Yes, I'll post the recording on the same page as the listing for the talk tonight.
Okay, thank you.
And a little side note, lilies are toxic to cats.
that I did not know. I did not know.
I didn't.
I wonder why. Yeah.
They've got some of those, probably got some of those, glycosides that they're in the Asphodel ACE. Don't ask me. But there's several things in those, those monocot families that are toxic to cats.
So I guess we shouldn't feed lilies to the cats.
Correct.
Or if you have a lily bed, make sure they don't get out there scratching around. If you have it, I actually have 6 cats, but they're all indoors. So
Good for you.
I know. Yeah, you can't work for the Wildlife Resources Agency and have cats outside.
No.
All indoors.
My cats are all outside, but they're called Bob.
There you go. There you go.
Any further questions? Anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me. Enjoyed it.
We've enjoyed that thoroughly. Thank you. Thank you.
You are very welcome. You are very welcome. And
Very
send me those pictures of those dandelions. I'd love to see that. Love that.
All right.
All righty. I'm going to stop.
Night.
sharing. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Pandy. And it's time to say goodnight to everyone. And thank you for joining us.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
If you can get the recipe and the pictures to me, Alice, that would be great.
Does she have a website?
No, she works for TWRA.
Okay,
So if you send them to me, I'll pass them along to Pandy.
okay.
No
Good enough.
problem with that. All right. Well, it's been fun. I've enjoyed this, but I'm going to say goodnight.